Have you ever received a phone call in the middle of the night that completely changed your perception of reality? Have you ever wondered what really happens when a 911 call center receives calls that don't make sense? Are there occurrences that official reports can never fully explain? My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I've worked as a police officer for over 20 years. During that time, I've answered thousands of 911 calls. Most of them had simple explanations: domestic disputes, false alarms, traffic accidents. But there are 3 incidents I've never been able to get out of my head. 3 calls that make me question everything I know about what is possible and what is not. Tonight, I'm going to share these stories with you. Don't expect answers. I don't have them myself. Story 1. The tenant in the attic. The first incident happened on a Tuesday in October about 8 years ago. It was one of those cold nights where you feel winter is coming. My partner at the time, Jenkins, and I were finishing our patrol when we received a call from headquarters. Unit 23, we have a welfare check request at 1847 Maple Street. The neighbor reports strange noises coming from the property for 3 consecutive nights. The owner is a 78-year-old woman who lives alone. Wellness check-in calls are routine. Usually, it's just an elderly person who forgot to call relatives or left the TV on too loud, but something in the dispatcher's voice made me uneasy. There was an emergency response that wasn't usually present on these kinds of calls. We arrived at the house 15 minutes later. It was an old Victorian-style building with 2 floors and a visible attic, the kind of house you see in old movies. The paint was peeling in some places and the garden needed maintenance, but nothing that indicated total neglect. We knocked on the door. No answer. We rang the doorbell several times. Silence. Jenkins looked at me. "Do you think she's okay?" "I don't know. Let's check the windows." As we walked around the house, I noticed something strange. All the curtains on the first and second floors were open, but the attic window, a small circular window at the top of the house, was completely covered from the inside. Not with a curtain, but with something that looked like cardboard or plywood. "Jenkins, are you seeing that?" He looked up. "The attic window. Yes, it's boarded up. Maybe she uses it as a storage room." But something wasn't right. Why cover only that window? We returned to the front door and Jenkins used force to open it. The lock was old and gave way easily. We entered, announcing our presence. "Police department, we're entering for a welfare check." The house was silent, a heavy, oppressive silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The first floor was clean and organized. Family photos on the walls. Antique but well-preserved furniture. Everything seemed normal. We went up to the second floor. That's when we heard it, a dragging sound coming from above, from the attic. Jenkins and I looked at each other. We drew our weapons. "Police department, if anyone is up there, identify yourself." The sound stopped immediately. We searched the house until we found the attic ladder, one of those retractable ladders that come down from the ceiling. It was locked, but the rope to pull it up swayed slightly, as if someone had just touched it. "I'm going upstairs," I said. "Not alone," Jenkins replied. I pulled the ladder. It came down with a loud creak that echoed through the silent house. I lit my flashlight and started to climb, gun in my other hand. The attic was hot. Uncomfortably hot, considering it was cold outside. There was a stifling quality to the air, as if there hadn't been any ventilation for weeks. My flashlight cut through the darkness, and that's when I saw it. In the corner of the attic, there was someone, a human figure crouched down, with its back to me. It was completely still. "Police! Turn around slowly with your hands where I can see them." The figure did not move. My heart was pounding. I advanced cautiously, keeping my weapon pointed. Last chance. "Turn around now." Nothing. When I got closer, I saw it wasn't a person. It was a pile of old clothes arranged to look like a person crouching. I lowered my weapon, feeling like an idiot, but then I heard Jenkins shouting from downstairs. "I found her. I found the owner." I ran down the stairs as fast as I could. Jenkins was in one of the second-floor rooms we had checked earlier. We had looked inside, but hadn't opened the closet. The woman was there, inside the closet, dead for at least 2 or 3 days, from what I could tell. But what chilled me was the expression on her face. Her eyes were wide, staring upwards. Her mouth was open in a silent scream, and her hands were scratched and bloody, as if she had tried to scratch her way out of the closet. The closet door wasn't locked. She could have left at any moment. So why didn't she leave? We called the forensics team and the medical examiner. While we waited, I went back to the attic. I wanted to understand what had happened there. That's when I noticed, in the corner where the pile of clothes had been, there were marks on the wooden floor, drag marks, as if something heavy had been dragged repeatedly from the same spot. I followed the markings to the boarded-up window. I carefully removed the plywood covering it. Outside the window, on the narrow edge of the roof, there were footprints, barefoot footprints, multiple footprints, overlapping each other, as if someone had stood there for hours. Looking inside, the forensic team arrived and documented everything. The coroner determined that the woman had died of a heart attack, technically a natural cause. But we all knew that something had frightened her so much that she hid in the closet and her heart couldn't take it. The neighbor who called us said the strange sounds were scratching and dragging noises coming from the roof. Always after midnight, always around the same time. We checked the house records. The woman had lived alone since her husband died 5 years earlier. She had no children, no close relatives, but when we searched the attic more carefully, we found something that the forensics team almost missed. Hidden behind old boxes was a thin, dirty mattress. Next to it were dozens of empty packages of non-perishable food, cans of tuna, packets of biscuits, empty water bottles. Someone had been living in that attic for weeks, maybe months. The attic ladder could also be operated from above. Whoever was up there could go down while the lady slept, get food, and return before she woke up. But here's the part that haunts me to this day. We installed security cameras in the house after that, hoping to catch whoever it was. The house remained empty for 2 weeks while the investigation continued. The cameras captured something on the 11th night. At 2:47 a.m., the attic stairs descended by themselves, slowly, as if someone were being extremely careful, and then nothing. The staircase remained open until dawn, when she climbed up again. We reviewed the footage frame by frame. No one went down that staircase, but it had been opened. When they finally sold the house, the new owner called us 3 months later. "There's something in the attic," he said. "I can hear it. Every night." We went back. We checked everything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I believe him, because on the night I was in that attic, just before going down to help Jenkins, I felt it. Someone was watching me. In the darkness, beyond the reach of my flashlight, something was there. And I think it still is. Story 2. The 47-kilometer road. The second incident happened 3 years later, during a particularly hot summer. I had been transferred to a more rural area, covering small towns and long stretches of state highway. It was the end of August. The call came in at 6:23 in the morning. Unit 15, we have an abandoned vehicle on Highway 47, near kilometer marker 47. A truck driver reported seeing the car there the previous night and that it was still there this morning. No sign of the driver. Highway 47 was a straight road that cut through miles of forest and farmland. There wasn't much traffic there, especially at night. It was the kind of road where you could drive for 30 minutes without seeing another car. I arrived at the scene 15 minutes later. The vehicle was an older model red Honda Civic parked on the shoulder of the road. There were no signs of damage, no flat tires, no evidence of a collision. I approached cautiously, hand on my holster. "Police department, if there's anyone in the vehicle, please identify yourself." No response. I looked out the windows. The car was empty. The keys were still in the ignition. A cell phone was in the cup holder of the center console, its battery dead. On the passenger seat, there was an open woman's purse, wallet still inside. I checked the wallet. Margaret Chen, 34 years old, address in a city about 200 kilometers away. Her driver's license showed an Asian woman with long dark hair and a shy smile. Things were already strange, but they got worse. In the back seat, there was a small, open suitcase. Clothes were scattered about, as if someone had quickly rummaged through it. And on the floor, partially hidden under the driver's seat, was a shoe. Just one. A women's running shoe. I called on the radio to report the situation and request backup. While waiting, I began examining the area around the vehicle. Her footprints were clear in the dust of the roadside. She had gotten out of the car, both feet, so she must have lost her shoe afterward. The footprints led away from the road toward the line of trees about 20 meters away. I followed the footprints. At the edge of the forest, they would stop. Simply, they would stop, as if Margaret Chen had arrived there and vanished into thin air. I searched for signs of a struggle, blood, any indication of what might have happened. Nothing. Just those footprints ending abruptly. Backup arrived. 2 more police officers and a detective. We organized a search of the area. We spent the entire day combing the forest within a kilometer radius of the car. Nothing. No sign of Margaret Chen. The detective, a guy named Morrison, started asking questions. Any history of mental illness? Suicidal tendencies? We contacted the family. Her parents were distraught. Margaret was a computer programmer. Working from home, with no history of mental health issues, she was driving to visit a friend in a neighboring town when she disappeared. She called me last night, the mother said between sobs. Around 10 p.m., she said she was stopping to rest because she was tired. She said she would call me in the morning, but she never reached her destination, and she never made that morning call. In the following days, the investigation intensified. Volunteer search teams, helicopters, sniffer dogs. The media picked up the story. Margaret's face was all over the local news. A week has passed. Nothing. 2 weeks. Still nothing. That's when I received a strange call from a farmer who lived about 3 kilometers from the highway. Officer, I don't know if this is relevant, but I found something strange on my property. I went there immediately. The farmer, an elderly man named Mr. Patterson, took me to one of his old barns that he rarely used. I was checking the roof because I thought it might be leaking, he explained, and I found this. In the attic of the barn, there was a small, makeshift camp, an old sleeping bag, some empty food cans, and bottles of water. And hanging from a nail in the wooden wall, there was a backpack. Inside the backpack, I found a student ID card. It didn't belong to Margaret Chen. It belonged to a girl named Alice Romero, reported missing 2 years prior, also on Highway 47, also at kilometer 47. My blood ran cold. I went back to the police station and started researching. Morrison helped me. We spent the whole night in the files. We found 4 cases, 4 people who disappeared over 7 years, all along the same stretch of Highway 47, always near kilometer 47, all between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. All left their vehicles voluntarily, with no signs of struggle. How had this gone unnoticed? How could 4 people disappear from the same place and no one had connected the dots? The answer was simple and disturbing. Because the police stations were different. Each case had been reported in different counties, depending on where the person lived. No agency had noticed the pattern. We launched a full investigation. Highway 47 was temporarily closed in that section. Forensic teams examined every inch of the area, and that's when we found it. About 50 meters into the forest, well hidden by the dense vegetation, there was a structure. It wasn't natural. It was man-made. It looked like an underground shelter. A rusty metal door was half buried, covered by years of leaves and debris. The door was not locked. Morrison and I went down, weapons in hand, flashlights lit. What we found down there was a room. A single concrete room, about 3 meters by 4. There was an old mattress in one corner. Chains were attached to the wall, and on the concrete walls there was writing, names, dozens of names, written in what appeared to be blood or something similar. Some were faded, clearly there for years. Others were more recent. Margaret Chen was among them, as was Alicia Romero. And the other 2 cases we had found, but there were more names, many more. Names that didn't match any missing person cases in our records. The forensics team was called in, DNA was collected, but we didn't find any bodies. Not there, not anywhere nearby, despite excavating the entire area. The most disturbing part, the room was clean. There was no accumulated dust. Someone had been there recently. We installed surveillance, hidden cameras, motion detectors. A team was on standby 24 hours a day, waiting for whoever was responsible to return. 3 weeks, nothing. 4 weeks, nothing. In the 5th week, at 1:34 a.m., the motion detectors were activated. The surveillance team arrived in 6 minutes. The shelter door was open. They went down. The room was empty, but there was something new on the walls. A message written in the same style as the names, "You can't catch me. I am the one who watches the road." The search continued for months. We never found anyone. We never found the bodies. Margaret Chen and the others are still unsolved cases, but here's what I know, and it's never been made public. 3 months after we found that shelter, I received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a photo. It was Margaret Chen, alive, looking directly at the camera, with a newspaper in her hand showing the date, 2 weeks after her disappearance. Behind her, out of focus but visible, was a landscape I didn't recognize. Mountains that don't exist in our region. On the back of the photo, there was only one word written by hand, "Far away." Highway 47 is still open. People drive on it every day. Most don't even know what happened there, but I know. And sometimes, when I'm on patrol at night and I pass that kilometer 47, I look at the forest and I swear I can see something looking back. Story 3. The call for the preservation area. The third and final incident I'm going to share happened last year. It was the one that disturbed me the most. The one that still wakes me up in the middle of the night. It was October again. It seems like the worst calls always come in October. 2:17 a.m. I was on patrol alone. My partner was on medical leave. The radio crackled. "Unit 15, we have an unusual situation. We received a 911 call from a cell phone registered to a 29-year-old Daniel Foster. The call dropped after approximately 10 seconds. We could hear someone gasping for air and what sounded like running. The cell phone's last known location was near the Summit Creek Environmental Preservation Area. Summit Creek was a nature preserve of about 1,000 acres. Hiking trails were available during the day, but it was closed to the public after sunset. It wasn't uncommon for some adventurers to decide to camp illegally there. Received Central. On its way, the main entrance to the preservation area was 20 minutes from my location. When I arrived, I found a single vehicle in the parking lot, a dark green Jeep Wrangler. The license plate matched Daniel Foster's registration. The trailgate was locked, as it should be, but upon examining the fence, I found a spot where someone had cut the wire and slipped through. I grabbed my high-powered flashlight, checked my weapon, and went inside. The forest at night is a different place. Sounds you don't even notice during the day become amplified. The wind in the trees sounds like whispers. Branches breaking in the distance make you jump. I followed the main trail, calling out Daniel Foster's name. My voice echoed among the trees, but there was no answer. About a kilometer into the trail, I found the first evidence that something was wrong. A backpack, thrown in the middle of the trail, contents scattered. Packed tent, sleeping bag, camping supplies, and blood. Not much, just a few drops on the backpack's canvas. My instinct told me to call for backup, but the dispatch center had said the call suggested someone was in immediate danger. I might not have time. I continued more cautiously now, my hand on my gun's holster. 50 meters ahead, I found Daniel's cell phone. The screen was broken, but it was still on. I checked the call log. The last call was indeed to 911 at 2:17 a.m. I was about to call on the radio when I heard it, a groan, low, coming from off the trail, deeper in the forest. "Daniel Foster, police department, where are you?" Another moan, a little louder, but there was something strange about it, something that didn't sound right. I left the trail, following the sound. My flashlight cut through the darkness, but the trees were dense. I could only see a few meters ahead. "Keep making noise, I'm coming for you." The groan came again, this time louder, and then I realized what was wrong with him. It was too mechanical, too predictable, like a recording being repeated. I stopped abruptly. Something wasn't right. All my instincts screamed danger. That's when I heard the other sound behind me, the sound of something large moving through the forest, not trying to be silent, just moving. I turned around, flashlight and weapon raised. For a brief second, my flashlight captured something between the trees. A figure, tall, very tall, at least 2.5 meters. The form was wrong. The limbs were too long, the joints bent at unnatural angles. And the eyes, 2 points of reflective light, like those of an animal, but much higher than they should be. I shouted, "Police, don't move!" It didn't stop. It moved to the side, out of range of my flashlight, faster than something that size should be able to do. My heart was racing. Every instinct told me to run, but my training took over. "Last chance, show yourself or I'll shoot." Silence. The entire forest seemed to be holding its breath, and then, coming from a completely different direction, I heard the voice. "Help, please, I'm hurt." It was a man's voice. It sounded genuine, desperate. But after hearing that mechanical groan, I couldn't trust my ears. "Daniel Foster, I'm a police officer. Stay where you are. I'm coming to you." "No," the voice replied, and there was real panic in it. "Don't come. Run. Get out of here. She's going. She's going." Her voice was cut off by a scream of pain and terror that made my blood run cold. And then, nothing. Total silence. I forced myself to move toward where the scream had come from, sweeping my flashlight in every direction, searching for that impossible figure. I found Daniel Foster about 20 meters away, at the foot of a large tree. He was alive, but barely. His face was pale, sweat trickling down his forehead despite the cold. His left leg was at an odd angle, clearly broken. But what made me recoil was his right arm. He was covered in marks. Not deep cuts, but scratches, hundreds of them, in patterns that almost seemed intentional, as if something with many small claws had run across his skin. She found me," Daniel whispered, his eyes wide with terror. "I thought they were stories, but she's real. Who did this to you?" "The woman of the trees," he said, and I could see in his eyes that he completely believed what he was saying. "She lives here. She imitates voices. She calls people to the forest, and then—" He started to cry, his body trembling. I didn't have time to ask any more questions. I needed to get him out of there. I called on the radio requesting an ambulance and reinforcements, and gave my location as best I could. While I waited, I kept my flashlight constantly moving, scanning the trees around us. Each moment, I hoped to see that tall figure again. Daniel grabbed my arm. "Did you see her?" he asked. "And please tell me you saw her. I need to know I'm not crazy." I looked at him, at that terrified man with real injuries, and I thought about that thing I had seen among the trees. "I saw something," was all I could manage to say. Help arrived 30 minutes later, which felt like hours. 2 other police officers and paramedics with stretchers. We managed to get Daniel out of the forest. At the hospital, after his bone was put back in place and his injuries treated, he told his story. He had come camping alone, wanting to disconnect for a few days. On the first night, around 2 a.m., he heard a woman's voice calling for help. Concerned, he left his tent to investigate. The voice was always a little further away, always in a slightly different direction. He followed it for almost an hour before realizing something was wrong. The voice never got any closer, no matter how far he walked. That's when he saw the figure in the trees. Tall, impossible to be tall, watching him. He ran. He dropped everything and ran back toward the trail. That's when he tripped and broke his leg. He managed to call 911, but the call dropped, and then she came to him. "She didn't kill me," Daniel said, his eyes lost in thought. She just stood there, watching, touching my arm with those hands. So many fingers, too many fingers. And she made that sound, that moan, as if she were learning. Doctors diagnosed Daniel with severe trauma and possible shock. Psychiatrists suggested that the combination of isolation, darkness, and pain from the broken leg could have caused hallucinations. But I knew the truth. I had seen it, briefly, but I had seen it. The official investigation listed the incident as a camping accident. Daniel Foster tripped in the dark, broke his leg, went into shock, and experienced trauma-related hallucinations. But a month later, I received a package, no return address. Inside was an old digital camera covered in dirt and leaves. I recognized it immediately. It was the camera that was in Daniel's backpack, listed as lost during the incident. There were only 3 photos on the camera. The first 2 were normal, Daniel in his tent, smiling, a selfie on the trail during the day. The third photo was taken at night. The quality was poor, blurry, as if the camera was moving when the photo was taken. But you could see it. In the background of the image, partially obscured by the trees, was a figure, tall, misaligned, and with more than 2 arms, looking directly at the camera. I filed the photo away in the back of a drawer at home. I never showed it to anyone. I never officially reported it. Because if I did that, I'd have to explain where she came from, and then I'd have to explain why I never mentioned what I actually saw that night. The Summit Creek Preservation Area is still open. Hikers visit every day. Most return safely, the majority. But every now and then, someone disappears. Always at night, always deep in the forest. And sometimes, just sometimes, they are found, terrified, wounded, talking about a woman who called them to the trees. And the other police officers laugh. They say it's the stress, the imagination, the fear of the dark. But I know, and now you know too, some things live where they shouldn't. Some things imitate what they shouldn't be able to imitate, and some 911 calls, you don't forget them. These were my 3 stories. 3 calls that changed my perception of reality. 3 cases that official reports explain in ways that I know aren't the whole truth. I still work as a police officer. I still answer 911 calls every night. But now I pay attention differently. I listen more carefully. I observe the shadows a little more attentively. Because I learned that the world isn't exactly what it seems. There are things on the fringes of our reality, things that hide in attics, that wait on deserted roads, that hunt in ancient forests. You can choose not to believe me. That's understandable. I myself struggled with these experiences for years, trying to rationalize them, to explain them logically. But deep in the night, when you're alone and you hear something that shouldn't be there, you'll remember these stories and you'll wonder. If you enjoyed this content and want to learn more about unexplained cases, survival techniques in extreme situations, and how to protect yourself from threats not covered in official manuals, I've compiled it all into an exclusive ebook. Survival Manual, What Academia Never Teaches You, is available now. Link in the description. In it, I share unofficial procedures, warning signs I've learned in 2 decades of service, and safety protocols for situations that technically don't exist. If you work in security, walk alone at night, or simply want to be prepared for the unexpected, This material could save your life someday. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there, and remember, when something doesn't seem right, it probably isn't.